People say, because it's warm out or it's cold out, so there's not really any climate change, and we're not doing anything that can affect it. Well, that's just not true. I mean, it's just we're having a major impact on the rest of the creatures we share this planet with. But the thing that really gets me is when I hear UN climate scientists from around the world saying by 2050, we're not so sure this place will be inhabitable for human beings anymore. Well, for me, I've lived a fairly long life. But for my 10-year-old daughter, I have a responsibility.
Pesticides and habitat loss are killing bees and other pollinators. And if plants don't get pollinated, we don't have food. We don't have fruits, vegetables, grains, nuts. A lot of these are used to feed animals that we use for food. So no pollinators, no food. Fires and floods and storms are destroying homes and businesses all over the world. We saw this just last year here in Woodridge and Darien. So climate change is real, and it's going to kill us if we don't do something about it.
The concern is really about my children and my grandchildren and the next generations that come after us. What kind of motivates me now more than my own personal safety, and that is the question: what would you do? What did you do, Grandpa or Dad, when the Earth still had a chance to do something? When science had some chance of doing things, politicians and the governments of our country and other countries had a chance to do something before it's become as terrible as it is. My daughter does have 2 grandchildren, aged 5 and 8, and I love them, and I want to see them have a future. They're wonderful children. They have wonderful parents. They can make a contribution to the world. It's the threat to our planet. It's the threat to humanity. It's the recognition that the worst effects of these things are going to happen to the poorest people on the planet, and already are impacting them in more ways than they are most of us in the United States, on the interior at least. These are just situations of manifold injustice.
Really not enough is being done to reverse the already visible evidence of climate change. If we don't act faster together, we and our sons, daughters, grandchildren, and future generations will be subjected to more severe and unpredictable weather events, larger and more devastating wildfires, drought that makes drinkable water more scarce and hampers food production, or worse yet, prevents food production. And the poorer the people are, the more they will suffer. We also worry about the lack of consensus among our world's political leaders and their constituents to actually make the difficult but necessary commitments and changes needed to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels.
The International Governmental Panel on Climate Change came out with a new report. And that report is quite long, but it specifically says it's either fossil fuels or our future. The world must push fossil fuels aside, rapidly scaling up the use of clean energy like wind and solar. It is only through these rapid and deep emissions reductions that the world can get on track to reach net zero emissions by 2050 and avoid 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit of warming. We as human beings simply don't like to make difficult decisions. This is a difficult decision because our entire social and economic system has to be rebuilt. Look at the wildfires in California. Nature is speaking. Look at the flooding and things like that. Nature is going to continue to say, hey, folks, shape up.
Reason for optimism. There is reason for optimism. People at a grassroots level are changing. People are realizing that what we eat and where we get our food is almost as much an impact on the environment as all the vehicles in the world combined in auto and airplane pollution. Car makers are starting to think about it, and corporations are starting to make changes. If only the politicians of the world had the will to act when most of the constituents say, hey, this is something we care about.
I have noticed that some corporations are starting to put some more green policies into practice. They realize that it's good business to cut down on waste and appeal to consumers who are interested in climate change. I'm sure some of this is probably window dressing, but other places, I think it is definitely good business practice.
Every day we see more and more electric vehicles on our highways, and it's a hopeful sign of change. More automobile makers are kicking into gear to develop and make more affordable and better electric vehicles to help more people reduce their fossil fuel use and the pollution that comes with it. And we celebrate Earth Day every day. We see people changing their habits and reducing their carbon footprint and making a commitment in a positive and personal way. That energy and enthusiasm can be contagious. More and more people are growing their own food. We are. And composting. More are discussing buying and sourcing their food more locally and having it organic. People are reducing their consumption of beef and dairy. And so many things are kicking in on a personal level to help positively address climate change.
What gives me hope is a number of people who have risen up, especially in the last few years, to realize what's going on. They have believed the science, trust the message of our knowledgeable people in this field, and most of us, or at least enough of us, have begun to believe that the realities that are happening to us are affected by what we do. That more and more of us will become concerned enough to look for ways to try to address this matter with our government and link up with people in other nations around the world who are concerned about this. The mass movement among youth in the world, it's all over the world, and in so many countries, the young people are rising up and saying it's our future, and you all, older generations, haven't done what needs to be done to protect us, and it's our heritage that you're taking away from us.
I have a responsibility to do whatever I can as a dad to try and raise my girls in ways that they'll be responsible, respectful citizens, but also by how I live and what I stand for.
My garden is mostly native plants. I do this to help pollinators, also because I like native plants. I think they're beautiful and they're low maintenance. Once they get established, they don't take a lot of water. I don't use any fertilizer. And so it's helps the planet and it takes less time for me.
To support a number of governmental candidates and people that are in the legislature who just don't talk about climate change, but actually work to get legislation enacted to address it.
We reduce our own energy footprint by driving less. And when we do drive, we plan our trips so that they are efficient as possible.
We buy, trade, and rehabilitate secondhand things rather than buying new and letting the old things go into landfill. And let me make a bid for the garage sale at the church, folks. That's a part of a way to do the same sort of thing. Rather than it end up in the landfill, donate to the church and for others to be able to use those things rather than they get disposed of.
And I want to do more, and the only way to do that, and since I'm not an expert in this field, is to find ways to talk about it with others and hope that we can, grow in our understanding and in our willingness and ability to address this matter with people who can make a difference in government. To be supportive of people who are going before city councils and state government and federal government and so forth, to be supportive of people who are doing this and have the knowledge and the wherewithal to really address it in a factual way that can turn the heads and turn the minds of our leaders to making changes. We can't just do this once and think that's it. Even if we sign postcards and say we're going to vote in favor of climate candidates, positive thinking climate change fighters, even if we do that once, that's not enough, certainly. We need to continue this process. We need to continue an educational process. We need to continue to find out how we can together move forward as best we can in ways that are congruent with our church's mission statement that we lead with love.
I pray that each of us can think about ways to make a difference, one person at a time, one small way at a time, for a more sustainable future.